Welcome to Killer Women with your host, best-selling author Danielle Girard. And now, Danielle's next killer woman.
Hello, and welcome to Killer Women Podcast, a proud member of the Authors on the Air global network with more than 4 million listeners. I am your host, suspense author Danielle Girard, and my guest today is Wendy Walker. Wendy is the USA Today best-selling author of psychological suspense novels. Her work has been translated into over 23 foreign languages and has been optioned for television and film. She's a former attorney and investment banker, and when she was a teenager, she trained with Olympic coach Carlo Fassi at the Broadmoor training facility in Colorado Springs. Her experiences were part of the inspiration for Blade. Wendy is the mother of 3 grown sons and lives in Fairfield County, Connecticut. Welcome, Wendy.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, the world of ice skating. So, I actually kind of think I knew this about you. We've known each other for a long time, 10 years? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, 10
But I
years.
didn't know about all these experiences. So, I want to dig in. Tell our listeners about Blade.
Okay, so Blade is loosely based on my experiences training for figure skating in Colorado. There's a lot of figure skating insider information in there, but the focus of the book is really on the psychological impact of um, young skater Anna Robbins, who 14 years ago was a skater there and ended up leaving under circumstances that are part of the mystery in the book. She's now a criminal defense attorney who specializes in representing adolescent and child suspects and offenders. And she brings a lot of knowledge about childhood trauma and the impact it has on children and into their adult years to her practice. So in the present day, we have young skater Grace Montgomery, who at 15 years old is now accused of murdering the assistant coach at the same training facility. And Anna is asked to come and help the local defense counsel to clear her name. So the story takes place over 3 days in a wintry snowstorm blizzard out at the training facility in Echo, Colorado. And we follow Anna's story in the present as she is trying to help young Grace, and also in the past and what actually happened to her 14 years ago. So we get a split time frame, 2 mysteries, all folded into one, and hopefully a lot of suspense and a lot of psychology.
So yeah, one of the things I kind of want to dig into, and yeah, that's all there. T Tons of suspense. The psychology is so interesting, and I want to dig into the sort of and I know this happened a lot, more so back in that time frame. The sort of like psychology that both the main coach Dawn and she has like a the shrink, the sort of team shrink, and all these ways in which they sort of like teach these girls to struggle to deal with their fear. Was that tell us about that, and was that what it was
Yeah.
like, and how does that not fuck everybody up? I'm just so curious.
Well,
Pardon my
when I skated there many more years ago than 14. So I'll just start with that. When I was training there in the early 1980s, actually, there really was not a lot of sports psychology at all. I mean, there was nothing that was offered on a regular basis. It was, I think, a beginning to find its way into the mainstream and as becoming sort of part of regular training to really get over. And really, what the focus is to get over the fear when you step out onto the ice. So you can run through your program, and every athlete knows this. You can run through whatever it is, a program, a game, anything, a practice. And when your nerves are steady and the adrenaline isn't pumping and everything works perfectly, the mind body connection is all right there. But once you add adrenaline to the mix, which is of course what happens when you are about to begin a performance or when something is, counts, like this is the score that's going to determine your entire career. adrenaline starts pumping and it actually interferes with the chemicals in your brain that are trying to connect the mind to the body, sending the messages on what to do because your brain is saying, fight or flight or freeze. Like that's what we need to do right now. And you're trying to override that. So most of the sports psychology actually focuses on that element of fear. What I added in the book was something that I made up. I don't think it's something that is at least in the mainstream. It is certainly I would be controversial if it was, but there's an aspect of figure skating, and I think any sport that involves the potential for falling and for physical danger where, and especially skating that is so unique because you're about to take off into a jump. And as everyone who watches skating knows, like triple jumps and now quads are the name of the game. Like you need the other stuff, but you have to have those components to really be competitive. And that was true even when I was skating. And there is something that happens on the takeoff to a jump. You need speed and you need height to get those rotations. Um, some skaters can spin faster in the air. They don't need as much height, but you have to at least you have to have some to get up and have the time in the air to make those rotations. But your body, your brain is wanting you to slow down and not go as high because then it's harder
Yes.
and more
Yes.
right, more dangerous when you
Right.
fall. So I added this whole component. There's of one of the girls in Anna's past, her best friend Indy, and Indy is struggling with a triple axel, which is still a thorn in the side of many female figure skaters. The men too, but for the men now they're starting to do quads. But it's just there's something on takeoff, and I can tell you from personal experience that going into a jump your body, your brain just does not want you to do it. And you have to override that. And everyone has their own abilities to do that. But I added this component with what I call the fear training, where Dr. Weston is trying to get these girls to overcome that impulse on the takeoff of their jumps to slow down.
Well, and you know that, I mean, it doesn't maybe exactly happen the way that Dr. Weston does it, but of course that exists, right? Where there is this,
Yeah.
it's a little bit of this like, and there's so much sort of emotional bullying that goes into how, and I actually, I read that and thought, yeah, that maybe wasn't like this exactly, but for sure the sort of, and the way that Dawn like offers her love, but then holds it back if you're not performing,
Yes.
like you can imagine all of these things at play. And here are these young, you know, and also, particularly the ones who are with the quote unquote orphans, right? So these are
Yes.
which just sounds like maybe you were. Did you go out there by
Yes.
yourself?
I did. So that's the other really big psychological component of the book is that it's and probably the biggest factor is that these girls are living alone without parents in a dormitory that is just for the skaters. And yes, when I was there, I was 13. I was one of the youngest skaters there to certainly to live there full time. I had other girls in my grade, I think maybe that year, but they came for maybe one semester and their parents didn't live that far away and would check on them or bring them home for weekends and things like that. So I was pretty far, Connecticut to Colorado, and I lived there year round for close to 3 years. So it was growing up in that environment, really largely unsupervised with skaters from all around the world, young men and young women, all thrown together from my age, 13, all the way up to probably, I think, maybe even 25
Yeah.
and from different countries too. So there were just so many funny things where, some of the skaters from like Japan, when I was there, they had cars and they didn't know how old we needed to be to drive. And so we would just borrow their cars and we'd be driving their cars. Like, can I borrow your car to go downtown? Sure. They
Oh,
didn't know you had to be 16 and needed a driver's license. Like because they're from Japan and they don't, what do they know about that?
right.
So there's so many experiences like that, but a lot of, certainly a lot of decisions that I made and a lot of impulses I had were not healthy. And I credit those years with a lot of good qualities that I have, but it was also, I think, three of the most damaging years of my life,
Yeah.
of my childhood, for
Yeah.
sure. And that's captured in the book.
Yeah, and particularly for women, right? I mean, or for girls, and
Yes.
in that case, the pressure, the body pressure,
Yes.
the really the risks of having the young women around sort of men. I mean, not men, but even
Yes.
somewhat older boys, and all of those things that without supervision, it is. Can you imagine like if somebody was like now, if you were like talking about sending your daughter off we'd be like, no, no, you're not doing
Oh, oh my gosh. I mean, even, said I have three sons, but I even sending them to summer camp and,
it.
just yeah, I think the parenting knowledge was different then. And I think there was definitely this lack of knowledge about childhood trauma. And I think the view was that you are who you are, you're born the way you're born. And as long as you're fed and not, abused by your parents and given opportunities that, the things that you encounter psychologically,
Right.
might be bad, but that they don't have any real lasting impact on how your brain is being wired and how your brain will be wired and how it will impact you going into the future. So yeah, and so there was a lot to unpack there. So I tried to capture the most poignant and suspenseful aspects of that for the book without, getting too involved. But it was,
Right.
yes,
Yeah,
there's a
no, but
lot.
it's all there. And I mean, I'm curious too about, because I really is in the book, and it's these sort of young women raising each other, right? And there's a lot of
Yes,
like there's a little bit of a hierarchy because Anna is one of the younger ones, and there's some,
yes,
some slightly older ones, but they really are, and the things that she sees that she, wouldn't likely see, and also sort of has to help with these situations that arise with the older girls, like, there's an attack, and I mean, there's a lot of things that, that not only is she
yes,
not sheltered from, which you would hope if there was more active parent involved, but she has to
yeah,
sort of be like she has to keep her wits about her in order to sort of help. Which is, and then what I love
yes,
about it is she comes back. Grace is the daughter, the girl who's
yes,
accused of the crime is the daughter of one of those skaters that that Anna skated with, and that there is this sense of like that they are when they come back together, right?
yes,
There's all these layers of their past. Now, are you
right.
still, I'm curious, are you still in touch with people that you skated with?
One of my very best lifelong friends is a skater. She was in Colorado for one summer, so I don't really associate her with that time in my life. We reconnected at Brown in
Mhm.
college, and yeah, I was just walking by like the community center and saw a sign for the Brown Figure Skating Club. I'm like, who is a figure skater here? So I went to the meeting, and it was my friend Sharon, who now runs a wonderful organization for girls in Harlem called Figure Skating in Harlem. But she was starting this figure skating club so she could get free ice time.
I
And
love
so
it.
she had to have a club. So we had the first club meeting, and it was me and Sharon, and then this other friend of ours that we had both skated with at different times in our lives. It's a small community. And so the three of us formed that club, and we skated every night, like Sunday nights at 11 o'clock at night or something. But yeah, so she's been one of my closest friends, and we frequently talk about those years, although her experience was much different than mine. From it's I'm friends with a lot of people on Facebook, so
Yeah,
reconnected that way.
yeah,
And a lot of people, when I started finding these videos of me skating and posting them, reached out and said, do you have any like that competition? Do you have any other, do you
right.
have me? And I did. I have like, there was a recording of the entire, I think like ten girls that were skating in the same division at doing our long programs at, the regionals. And so I had them. And so I found a couple of them, I found them and I cut them, just their program and gave it to them. And they were like, oh
Mhm.
my God, like I don't have any videos of me skating. I don't have
Yeah,
any like almost no pictures. And so a lot, it was interesting to reconnect and hear their stories
Yeah.
and see where they are now. So yes, we've definitely reconnected through social media as a result of social media, but now also with the book and all of the sort of things I've been putting out there,
Yeah.
especially like getting back on the ice.
Yeah,
So
that's so fun. Well, and so I'm curious, like, why, why you've published already like, a dozen books.
yeah.
So why now? Like, what made this? Because you've had this story obviously inside you for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought of hitting it head on. Like all of my books um, deal with childhood trauma in one way or another. I never thought about hitting this head on. I did attempt years ago to write something that wasn't a thriller, that was more memoir-ish
Hmm.
turned fiction, and it just didn't land, didn't make it out of the draft form, and then I started writing thrillers. And I mean, I just never thought to write about it. And then my agent, Dan Conaway, he said, I really like, I'd love to see you pivot, you know, back into something that's more deeply psychological and maybe, drawing, this is like a gold mine that's sitting there that hasn't been touched. And, I don't think I would have written it if it hadn't been for his suggestion and encouragement. And I even said to him that I don't know where to start. I don't know where my story ends and something fictional could begin, or how to weave it in to a fictional story. I don't know which pieces are
Yeah.
would be relevant, and I don't want to just write my own story. And so it was really such a process, a very unique process in writing that book, the first draft, because I just pulled everything and wrote everything that I could think of that had happened, and that was really difficult.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, and then this, oh my gosh, and then that, and
Right.
actually one of the final moments of the book, I had left it out of the original sort of, sketch of all the things that had happened. And when I came up with the story, I said, oh yeah, and then I remembered this other thing that happened, and I'm going to draw from that because that was crazy too, So it
Right.
was endless amounts of sort of scenarios and situations that the girls were in. So there are some nuggets in there that are, pretty close to
Yeah.
what actually happened.
Yeah.
But it was hard. It was really hard. I'm not gonna lie. And
No,
it still
yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Promoting it, talking about it, getting back on the ice.
Yeah.
Really hard.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I did it. It's been very cathartic as well.
I was gonna say, you know me, I'm working on a book that is also the closest thing I've ever done to, autobiographical about the woman whose husband has this long affair. And it's much harder. Even though this is not at all my story, because of course this woman dies and no,
Yeah.
nobody's died in my story. But I think it's just even touching the emotions, did it make you realize things about that experience that you hadn't processed or acknowledged?
Not really, because
Right.
I think, there was no way to get through my adult life without unpacking them and dealing with them.
Yeah.
So I feel like I had done that work.
Yeah.
And so I kind of knew where everything was in my mind, and the wires that I've tried to rewire and reconnect or disconnect. And um, I kind of know where all that stuff is.
Hmm.
Uh, I think writing about it, it was interesting to write just the skating stuff and the descriptions that were really positive, and maybe that would
Yeah.
be the thing that came out of it was, oh yeah, I actually loved to skate.
Yeah.
I having to describe what it feels like to move on the ice and to jump and to spin, and what it feels like when it's good. That piece was something I had not thought about or acknowledged for many years. So that I think that that would be probably the thing that came out of it that was most surprising.
That's lovely though that there's like all that joy but back in how yeah, you're back on the how is it to be back on the ice?
So the first time I stepped on this, and I had, I had skated. Like I think it was about 15 years ago that I last skated because I
Yeah.
went on, through college, I went on with friends and I actually got all my jumps back. I remember even in law school, there was a rink I would go to in DC outside, and I was doing all of my jumps and spins and everything. And into my early 30s. And once I had kids, then obviously I wasn't, then I
Right.
skated only when they were skating. And so I think the last time was like 15 years ago, and my youngest son, I was trying to teach him to skate and getting him out there. And I remember being able to just get out, get up and go. I wasn't doing jumps, um, but I was spinning and I was like, oh, look, I can still do a sit spin, or I can still do. And this time though, after 15 years, I put my skates on and I stepped out and thought, here I go. And I just, my mind was telling my body where to go, and it was not connecting at all. I mean, it was like, I felt like I actually like said to my boyfriend who was with me, like, I think there's something wrong with my skates. Like there's something wrong with these blades, or what's going on with the ice? Because I felt like I was sticking and not moving. And he was like, no, just keep going. And I kept going. And within a couple of minutes, I was like, oh, okay. All right. It's coming back. So it's still, I mean, I'm not out there training every day.
Yeah.
But I have been, just to do some promotional stuff and just to experience it so I can talk about it. I've been out probably, a dozen times, um, and it's definitely getting more comfortable and easier. But I'm not as comfortable as I was 15 years ago for
Oh, of
sure.
course, right? Yeah. I mean, also, unfortunately, as it turns out, it's harder to do things, than it was when we were in our 30s.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
but
Yes.
I'm right there with you, and that's unfortunate as
Yeah, no, my the muscles that we use maybe or are just the coordination, the things that, just are not the same. And
yeah.
so the messages are being sent, but there's nothing there to receive them, I guess.
Yeah, right. They have to be retrained. It's so true. And do you feel like
Yeah.
from having written this book, does it change, will it change sort of how the way you approach the next book in terms of, you know, really getting the insider, I know obviously I felt that from all of
Yeah.
your books where you're really inside the characters, but this is such a different level of that. Well, do you feel like it's shifted something for
It's
you?
Yeah, I mean the next book I'm working on is I'm diving into suburbia, which I did years ago before I was writing thrillers, and most of my thrillers are set in the suburbs, but I don't really, it's sort of a backdrop. It's not diving really into the culture. So yeah, this book very similar, like trying to live and breathe it, but also with it, because unlike skating, which you know I think for most people, I think they'll find it interesting, this sort of inside, like what it feels like to be in that community, to be on the ice, and to be, at that level. But um, most people have an idea about the suburbs, or they've lived in the suburbs, like
Yeah,
wealthy
right.
suburbia. We see shows and movies about it all the time. So I was trying to think, what is not portrayed, what are some what's beneath the layers,
Right.
what goes beyond that. And so it took me a while to excavate it, actually, but I kept digging until I found it, and I'm pretty excited about it. So but yeah, it definitely has uh, the process, and also working with my agent, who is, very good at this type of excavation,
Yeah.
and writing it, who's been really great at, just sort of eyeing which nuggets are sort of the golden nuggets in all of the stuff, and like, okay, and being able to trust that and say, okay, all right, because
Yeah.
when we're close to things, like if you're writing this book that you're so close to, it's sort of like, well, is this an obvious thing I'm writing about? Because it
Right.
feels like I've lived with it for so long that maybe it's just obvious to everyone, or
Right.
what's unique about it and what hasn't been explored in this human experience that I'm trying to
Right. It's
dive
so
into.
true. So I want to circle back about your new agent because I think that's the thing we don't explore that much on the show necessarily. And
Yeah.
I know there are so many different types of agents, and I've had
Yeah.
a switch now where I have an agent that's so involved editorially and helping me sort of
Yes.
structure a book, which is really different. It sounds like you do too, and I'm just curious to know sort of like what's it been like to move from somebody who
Yeah.
was sort of more hands off to somebody who's more hands on, and do you feel like there's obviously the benefits are huge, but is it weird now to have an agent so involved?
Yeah, I mean, I it was really helpful with this book because on top of writing something so personal, and changing publishers. I also had major back surgery during it. And so there was a lot of, I was writing through a lot of pain and having to write in spurts and not my usual, sit and write for 10 hours and really get into something. It's so a lot of personal challenges and it was nice to feel like I was not alone in the process and that, could literally send a chapter at a time has like okay we during the revision because we were really trying to get the book done by the summer a year ago and it was great to that he could go in, read it, know where we were, be totally involved, remember the book so well because was involved in reading it two or three times and different sort of different rounds of edits. So it was extremely helpful. And this time around, I've written it, and now I'm going to send it to him. And I'm a little, there's also that, oh my gosh, because when someone is hands-on, you just don't know what they're going to think of it and how much work it's going to need. So I think
Right.
that's the flip side, and it's definitely like people ask me all the time when they're, asking about agents, it is something to think about your process. I'm not a trained writer. I don't have an MFA. It's not, so for me, I feel like I'm always learning new tools, always as
Yeah.
a writer. And I have my voice for sure. But I'm, you know, I feel like I'm evolving and learning and getting better. So it's actually really amazing to have someone who is sort of saying, I notice you do this a lot and it's taking me out of the story or and I'm like, oh wow, yeah, I guess I can see that. Like I do that a lot because we fall into our little
Oh yeah, we have quirks for
our
sure. Yeah.
quirks, our things, and it's just how our brains work, right? Like I
Yeah.
need to write this sentence, and this is how I usually structure it. So here it
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
and it comes out, in your
Yeah.
fingers.
I
So
think.
yeah, it's been great. And also, I will say, writing for audio has changed the way I write
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I write for Audible. I write originals, and I guess a few years ago, I started writing them not as just books that are going to go to audio first, but as what I would call audio first, meaning it's going to be written for audio first and foremost, not just going there before it goes to print. And so my last two novels for them are I don't even know how I would convert them to print. They would have to be completely rewritten. They are written to be read and performed, and the way everything is structured throughout, even the narration just by each character, the way all of the dialogue is structured, it's meant to be read and it's meant to have sound effects. It's meant to be
Yeah.
produced,
Yeah.
fully produced. And so and Blade has several chapters that are, I think we've got like 12 chapters maybe that are fully produced. They are
Wow.
scripted. They are with, I think, I can't, I don't know the full cast, but it has a full cast. So every character, it's kind of fun because when you're hearing about the characters in the main chapters, the narrated chapters, and then you go to these one or two little pages of scripted moments. Um, they are interviews and
Yeah, those I
they are
reckon.
with,
Yeah.
yeah, they're with the characters. So you get to hear what those characters actually sound like.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of fun. And I think that has really I feel like it's changed a little bit the storytelling,
Yeah.
the way that I tell the story, and feeling like I can take more liberties and not have every chapter, be the same length, but really what does the story need now? Like,
Yeah.
where are we in the story, and what do we need to make it interesting? And so that I feel like that is, I noticed my writing having a lot of that in it with this last book I wrote, and also with Blade.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like writing a script a bit.
Yeah, and you start to think about, when you're writing for print, you want to make sure you're, making the prose interesting, and leaving room for the reader's imagination of what these characters would sound like and might
Yeah.
look like. When you're listening to a story, you're using a different part of your brain, and your eyes are seeing different things. So the imagination, you're not necessarily visualizing a character or hearing a character, because you're experiencing something else visually in your world. And so there is that difference, which I'm always aware of when I'm writing for audio. Um but I do think about with print, like, okay, where does the story need to go now to be really interesting and to keep things moving along? So
And
it's
how is
been
it now
fun.
to go back and forth between sort of a traditional print book and the sort of audio first books?
Yeah, it's really fun actually. It's because the audio first, it doesn't have to be a final, it's not a final like draft of anything. And I am now executive producing them as
Gotcha.
well, with the Audible producer, and we have a director, and who also produces. And so the three of us are involved in it. And the script, I sit in on all of the recording sessions, um, and the director leads the way. But I will, I'll be like, boop, I'm sorry, that was a typo, or
Yeah.
dude, that sounds really bad, actually. Can we try it a different way? And I can hear it. And
Yeah.
so I don't have to be as perfect or as precious with everything, because I know it's like a living script, and that I'm going to have it, I obviously try to make it as, as clean and good
Right.
as you
Of course.
can,
Yeah. Of
but
course.
knowing that I don't know how this is going to sound. Like, this passage might be too long, or with, Julia Whalen reading it, it might be just perfect. You
Yes.
don't know.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's really been, I love the production part of it. It's
Yeah.
such a great break from sitting alone and writing.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I really enjoy it, doing both. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
What
gonna
a
keep doing it as long as I can, as long as they'll let
exactly.
me, is what
But
I
maybe
always say.
not two a year, Wendy. That's kind of crazy.
Maybe not to a year. We were just talking about that before we started
Yeah.
recording. Yeah, it's been doing to a year. It's just the way everything
Yeah.
kind of panned out, because I was changing publishers. So now I'm like, okay, let's get the cadence down and get a rhythm going. So yeah, this year I just had, and my audio original, The Room Next Door, just came out in October. It's a really quick turnaround time. So my head is spinning with, what I'm supposed to be talking about and promoting. And I think, that'll be good. And now I'll have a break,
Yeah, yeah.
a little bit of
Well,
a break.
it's an embarrassment of riches too, right? I mean, since we're self-employed, it's really hard to say
Yes.
no to
Very hard to
like you
say
get
no. Yes.
a salary. If you don't do the work, you don't get paid. So it's very hard
Yes.
to, and we were just talking about also the fact that hopefully though you get to the point where you can be like, okay, now I'm gonna just slow down a little
Yeah.
bit because I've done it and the new Audible is doing really, really well. You're having
Yeah.
huge success with that, and Blade is gonna be a big book. And so now hopefully you get a chance to just slow down and breathe a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it's going to be nice to sort of, just promote Blade, and
Ah,
have, hopefully have a draft in, and then just, try to have a little bit of a life too.
yes,
So
a life. That's what
a
we're talking about.
life,
It
because
sounds so exciting.
if we don't have a life, what are we to
What,
write about?
what's exactly what's the
Gotta
point?
live.
And actually,
Yeah.
and you and I are going to do an event together,
Yes.
um,
In
which
February.
in February, at the end of February. So, and
Yep.
I can't remember the exact details of that, but I know it's up near you. I'm going to be
Yep.
in Connecticut.
Yep. It's at the Barnes and Noble around the corner from my house, actually. So yeah, it's like sort of a local Barnes and Noble, and
Super exciting.
yeah, Really fun. Yeah,
So
it'll be
Wendy and
great.
I will both on both of our social media,
Yep.
we will keep you posted about that. Wendy, tell our
Yes.
listeners where to find you and follow you, so they can
Yes.
keep track
Yes.
of your tour dates.
Yeah, so everything, I'm just starting to get everything loaded up now onto my website. It's wendywalkerbooks.com. And I'm on Facebook, but I'm primarily on Instagram and on TikTok. So Instagram and Facebook is Wendy Walker Author. And on TikTok, it's also Wendy Walker Books. So you can usually find me by just putting my name in.
Yeah,
But
Google. Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, my website has all the links to everything. It has lots of, links to skating videos of me when I was younger, and if you want to see me skating when I was 15 years old.
I do. I'm going there right
Yeah.
now.
And and getting back on the ice, I've got a video of just talking about that journey, and it has all the links to all of my everything, all my stuff, all my Audible stuff, and there's a lot of videos and lots of photos from when I was at the Broadmoor, actually. So
It's exciting. Well,
yeah,
and we will
had to
be
dig
giving.
dig deep for those.
Yeah, I'll bet. I know. I can't wait to go. I'm gonna go check that out. That's so interesting to me. And we will be giving away a copy of Blade. So keep a eye out on our Killer Women Facebook group or Killer Women podcast on Instagram for that. And then we will hopefully whoever's in Connecticut and listening to us will come and visit us in person, which
Yes.
would be super, super fun. So Wendy, I'm so excited for Blade and for you and for getting
You.
a little insight into young teenage Wendy, which was,
Oh
I
my
mean, not
gosh.
this is, but you know what I mean? The world that
Yes.
Wendy was in. So,
Yes.
but hopefully with a little less drama. So,
Yes. Yes, for sure. Thanks so
no
much. This
murder.
was so fun.
It was so fun. Thanks everyone for joining us today on Killer Women with Wendy Walker, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.